After the narrator had located the burn mark on the table, she noticed that the young girl was looking at her questioningly. The narrator says, "You get so used to touching all these lovely things in the house, you hardly look at them anymore. You only notice when something is missing, because it has to be repaired or because it has to be landed, for example." The narrator states that how things lose their speciality once they are around for a long time, that one gets used to touching every lovely thing that are around of one's own house. Hence, one would not notice any difference or hardly looks at it anymore. One would notice their importance when those things are not with you. You only notice when something is missing from their original place or once it has gone to be repaired or because it has been lent to someone else. The narrator here gives a subtle hint towards Mrs. Darling's insensitive act of not returning the things that were given to her for safekeeping by her mother, Mrs. S. There is also a hidden regret in her voice, which shows that we often take things for granted relation to and notice things only when they are missing or when they are gone forever, like the narrator's family. We seldom ponder over the things lying around us because they are there. Their true worth is realized only when we don't find them in front of our eyes. The narrator had described the human predicament after the war, how small inanimate things achieve importance after losing its normalcy. As she was trying to remember her old days, once again the voice of the narrator was unnatural. The narrator goes on to say how once her mother had asked her to help her in polishing the silver utensils of their house. It was a long time ago, and she was probably bored on that day, or perhaps had to stay that day, maybe as she was ill. The narrator had never been asked by her mother to do this work before, so the narrator had asked which silver her mother was referring to, which has surprised her mother. The narrator's mother replied that she was referring to the cutlery, the spoons, knives, and forks, because the narrator did not know till then that the cutlery that they ate of every day was made of silver. On hearing this, the young girl laughed. The narrator then looked intently at the young girl, means she looked carefully at the young girl, and asked whether she knew that their cutlery was silver too. The young girl asked shockingly if the narrator meant about the cutlery they were using. The narrator again asked the young girl if she knew about those pieces. The young girl hesitated and said she would check and say as they were kept in a drawer by the sideboard. Sideboard is like a shelf with lot of drawers. The narrator suddenly got up. The narrator did not want to stay there any more. Probably she was overburdened with the memories of the past, seeing the old belongings again, and told the girl that she would leave now because it was time to catch her train. The young girl had placed her hand on the drawer. The girl had opened the drawer to check on the forks and spoons. The young girl asked that won't she wait for her mother, Mrs. Darling? To which the narrator replied, "No, I must go." Saying this, the narrator walked to the door, told the young girl that she would go alone. The narrator said that she could find her own way. In the meanwhile, the girl had pulled the drawer. As she was leaving, the narrator could hear the jingling of spoons and forks. At the turn of the road, she looked up at the nameplate again. It read Marconi Street. The narrator had been to the house number 46. The address given by her mother was correct, but the narrator did not want to remember it anymore. She wanted to forget about every memory of the past. The concluding passage exposes the true emotions of all war-ravaged persons. The narrator says that the memories attached to things of the past life instantly got separated when we see them again in strange surroundings in another place. Now the narrator looked at those things from a different perspective. She could no longer relate with them, because they now seemed to be associated with others' lives. The things no longer had the same value without the people to whom they were linked to. These things had other memories attached to them, and they should belong to a normal family. The narrator had no family now. She justified her action of not wanting to take the belongings by saying to herself that she had lived in a small rented room, on whose windows still hung paper that was used during the blackouts to avoid bombings. She had no place to keep all those belongings now. Her drawers in her small rented room did not fit more than a handful of cutlery. All these things, for she had come to retrieve, was now useless to her. In the end, the narrator decided against taking her possession along, as she left, as she felt that all these possessions would remind her of her family members who had died during the course of the war. She resolved to forget the address once and for all and moved on, which symbolizes a tragic past. For her it was a burden she was relieved to get off her mind and heart. She had let go of and forgotten many sorrowful things in the past. She feels that compared to that, this will be the easiest things to forget. The easiest thing was to forget the address so that she would not have all those memories that she did not want to remember. She wanted to break off with the painful past and move on with the present into the future. Nostalgic times from the past create resurgent feelings, and human nature wishes to abandon it and surge ahead. Thus it is clearly evident in the story how war affects simple people's lives. The story not only evokes deep hidden pain but also sheds light on the misery associated with unwanted wars. The story intends to convey one's wish to redeem the past and move ahead. The author, despite being attached to memories of her past, had the courage to leave them behind in order to make a fresh beginning. On a deeper level, the story is a commentary on memories and knowing what is worth remembering and what is worth forgetting. The story clearly brings to light the fact that holding on to the past can be an extremely painful exercise. Forgetting the moments and the experience can really be a difficult task, but once you accept your past wholeheartedly, you are relieved from a burden. The Address by Marga Minco is indeed an inspiring story which sheds an adequate amount of light on the importance of letting things go. It further reiterates that both past and future are illusions and all we have with us is the present.